The first thing anyone remembered about Darvin Cole was how carefully he moved, as if every gesture was measured against the weight of consequence. But the night his hands began to tremble was the night everything he built began to slip through the cracks of his own design. It started quietly, with a ledger he thought no one would ever open, and a choice he believed would dissolve into the noise of a busy city. But crime never dissolves. It waits. It breathes. It grows into the kind of secret that changes a man's posture, tightens his voice, and forces him to walk through life with the haunting knowledge that one miscalculated line of numbers can become a noose. In the stillness of his dimly lit office, the glow of a single monitor illuminated the man who once prided himself on precision. Darvin leaned forward, shoulders rigid, eyes fixed on the digital account he'd manipulated for months. The cursor blinked like a silent accusation. He swallowed hard, steady and slow, as though even the air judged him. Outside, the muffled hum of late-night traffic pressed against the windows. But inside, the only sound was the faint clicking of keys soft. Hesitant, each tap carrying the weight of a man who knew he had crossed a line he'd sworn he never would. He had once told himself that shifting funds was temporary, a bridge to get through a tough season, something he would correct when business stabilized. But numbers have a way of growing teeth when hidden long enough, and Darvana, quiet accountant at a mid-level firm, had underestimated how quickly small deceptions could swell into a crime that reshaped everything around him. His supervisor, Mara Jensen, noticed at first not the fraud, but the behavior, the way he avoided her eyes, the way his breath hitched when she asked simple questions, the way his hands trembled slightly when he passed her documents. She didn't accuse him, not. At first, she simply observed, her calm gaze lingering a beat too long each time she saw him retreat into himself. Darvin felt that gaze like a spotlight. In the days that followed, the office changed. Conversations fell silent when he entered. Whispered exchanges sharpened into quick glances over shoulders. Even the fluorescent lights seemed to buzz louder, exposing every flaw he tried to hide. And yet, he kept pretending. Pretending the fear wasn't real. Pretending the IRS notice left on his desk wasn't a direct shot at the wall he'd tried to build around the truth. He stored it inside his drawer, sliding it shut with a slow, controlled movement. But the tension in his jaw betrayed the storm inside him. That evening, Mara approached his desk. Her voice was low, steady, almost gentle. The voice of someone who wanted the truth more than she wanted a confession. Darvin. "We need to talk." His breath caught. His fingers tightened around the edge of the desk. He didn't look at her. Instead, he stared at the muted reflection of himself in the darkened computer screen, a man, cloaked in the shadow of his own choosing. In the small conference room where she guided him, the lights flickered with the heavy hum of old wiring. His posture was stiff, shoulders drawn inward, as though bracing for impact. Mara set a thin folder on the table between them, her movements precise but empathetic. She didn't push, she didn't threaten. She simply opened the folder and let the silence suffocate the room. Pages turned slowly, each one holding the quiet devastation of altered numbers, duplicated entries, inflated losses, hidden transfers. Darvin watched her finger trace each line with the kind of controlled patience that felt like a blade against his throat. When she finally raised her eyes, the room froze. "Why'd you do this?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. His mouth opened, but no words formed. His hands trembled against small, involuntary movements he tried to hide by clasping them together. He felt the weight of everything pressing down on him. The fear of losing his job, the shame of being caught, the helplessness of realizing that the moment he tried to outrun the truth, he'd chained himself to a lie stronger than steel. "It was supposed to be temporary," he said at last, voice strained, thin, unsteady. "I just needed time." Then it got out of control. Mara exhaled softly, a sound not of anger but disappointment. It struck harder than any accusation. The company launched a quiet, internal inquiry, but the silence was short. Federal investigators arrived with their crisp suits, clipped tones, and eyes that dissected every flaw in a man's story. Darvin sat across from them, sweat forming along his hairline, his gaze fixed on the table where his reflection warped against the polished surface. His voice faltered with each answer. His breathing grew uneven. Every moment felt like an interrogation of his conscience, not just his crime. One of the agents leaned in slightly, his tone steady, authoritative, a voice sculpted by years of watching guilt unravel. "You knew this was illegal," he said. Donovan nodded, the movement slow, defeated. "So why continue?" Silence. A long, suffocating pause. Then, a single answer, spoken with the unsteady breath of a man finally stripped of excuses. "Because I didn't know how to stop." In the weeks that followed, Darvin's world collapsed. Colleagues avoided him. Friends distanced themselves. His reputation, once defined by precision and reliability, was now etched with betrayal. But the harshest punishment wasn't legal. It was internal. He couldn't even meet his own eyes in the mirror without seeing the man he had. Did he become someone who let fear eclipse integrity, who traded honesty for convenience, who believed he could outrun the truth until the truth cornered him with quiet, merciless certainty? The courtroom felt colder than he expected. The wooden bench beneath him seemed heavier, the air thicker. When the verdict was read, his expression didn't change. His body remained still, but inside, something fragile crumbled. Not because of the sentence, but because he finally understood the depth of the damage he'd caused to his career, his relationships, his own sense of worth. Months later, when he sat alone in his small apartment, the world outside moving on without him, he reflected on the moment it all began. A simple decision, seemingly harmless, made in a moment of desperation. One choice, one shortcut, one quiet betrayal of the values he thought anchored him. And that was all it took to unravel everything. The screen in front of him once again cast that pale glow across his face. But this time, there were no numbers hiding secrets. Just a man confronting the wreckage of his own making, breathing slowly, as though relearning how to exist without the constant weight of deception. In that silence, the truth became painfully clear. Every crime, no matter how small, begins with a rationalization. And every rationalization becomes a chain one that eventually tightens until it breaks the very person who forged it. Sometimes, one wrong choice can destroy a lifetime. Learn from their story. Choose kindness. Choose life. This was just the beginning. The most mysterious and shocking crime stories are still ahead. Subscribe to Crime Flow Narratives and be among the first to uncover what comes next.